Hey guys, how are you?
Hi,
Good.
Ray.
So to start, for all of you, but specifically for Sterling and John, a movie like Dead Male has this kind of mystery quality, and it's also kind of campy at times, and it is very kind of quirky and fun to kind of dive into. For you guys as actors, what was the joy of getting to play within that genre?
Jeez. Sterling, I'll keep putting the onus on you. You start first.
No, see,
All
no,
right.
you go first on this one.
Why don't we both talk at the same time?
Yeah,
That would be
about
a
that.
novel
That's what
concept.
I prefer. Just both on top of each other, just
Uh,
Cacophony.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, geez. I was just so grateful to have a big part in a very interesting movie. And you know what? I like to play kind of dark characters. It's just the shadow side of humanity, and also to not just the dark side, but the contradiction, the light side. I loved how complex the character for my part was, and you know. Like you said, I don't know. That's about all I got to say right now. But what about you, Sterling?
I guess we say that question again. I want to make sure I'm answering whatever what I'm about to say answers it. I'm not-
what for you is the fun of getting to play in that genre that is both campy and it's mystery and there's a lot of elements all kind of working as one.
Well, that for me that's pretty interesting because playing Josh, and any I think most actors would tell you I, our job is to tell our character story at a microscopic level, maybe even a level that's at a higher fidelity than what the writer or even the director see, right? So I wasn't really looking at the story and the tone of it as a whole so much as what who Josh is and what he's going through, and Josh, there was no camp to Josh's story. There was it was the Josh did not there was nothing even comedic necessarily to lean into. There were, I think, really kind human moments initially between Josh and Trent, you
Mhm.
know. Um, but that again was all so much from a subjective point, Josh's subjective point of view. So for me, it was about that very Josh centric experience, which was, very much a visceral drama.
Yeah.
Rachel, what do you mean by campy? I'm curious.
Well, I'm thinking more specifically like a lot of the beginning moments, especially when we're in the like post office aspect. For me, I was like, oh, it's kind of can't be how like these characters are interacting with each other. And it's not as like a lot of horror movies have those like eerie, and it wasn't that eerie. It was like a bunch of people kind of trying to do their jobs. And I was like, I kind of like that as a little campy, setting everything up.
Right, right. So it threw you for a loop when it kind of does get dark.
Yeah, when it then turns, I was like, it's kind of campy in the beginning. Maybe not so much towards the end, but it was at the beginning. And for Joe and Kyle, listen, Zodiac is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I love when a bloody letter comes through the mail and people have to figure out what's going on. For you guys, when you are, diving into horror as a genre and you're working on writing something that has to kind of keep us on our toes, were there any movies or things that you guys look to kind of like help inspire how you wanted an audience to follow along with this story?
I think with this one, maybe, past films, we were very heavily influenced by certain directors and films. This one, we were kind of, as much as possible, wanting to draw from our own experiences and just preferences in terms of the tone of the film, kind of what you talked about. Anything from like 1980s Mormon VHS films to just our own kind of bland Midwest upbringing. Something Joe and I always would talk about just in general outside this film was how our relatives from Wisconsin and Illinois, you could see a photo of them from 1977 or 1992, and they look exactly the same. Or Uncle Rick didn't have a pinky in 1992, but he didn't, but otherwise exactly the same. But you know, we want to just kind of capture that ambiguous, kind of non-stylized 1980s world. So I think that was kind of the main tonal, at least kind of just visual reference to us, was that.
And as far as your comment on tension, I think we learned a lot from our first film. You know, separating the writing from really the rest of the process to the final edit. You can't be cute. You can't introduce too many characters. Um, you've got to keep, you know, the tension high. So we were definitely very conscious of that throughout, just wanting to trim off fat, but also keep, you know, the bones of the scene. And obviously, characters are really important to us without, you know, while preserving the integrity of the characters and dialogue, things like that.
Yeah, and for Sterling and John Sterling, you kind of talked about this a little bit, but like one of the things about horror as a genre that I think is really fascinating is that the characters have to live within their truth for us to be afraid of everything else going around, because if not, there can be a disconnect between the audience and what is actually scary. And so for you guys, what did you kind of do to make sure that, like, even in a moment where it was absolutely like something that you weren't sure what was going on for you, but you knew that the character had to have figured this out?
You want to go, John? Go.
No, I'm a little confused. Say that one more time, Rachel.
What was the moment for you when you were filming that, like, you knew that the character, he would have had to figure this out and he would know what was going on even if you were kind of still processing what you needed to do?
Wow.
That's a pretty sophisticated question.
I know. I mean, God, can I sleep on this? No.
Email me a response in a couple of days.
You've stunned us, Rachel. You've stunned us with this.
Yeah.
God.
Well, Sterling, I know you kind of would ask questions about like, why is Josh going along with this, and like, when does he start growing suspicious of Trent? Was there a moment where?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question, because the question that I hear you asking is almost broader about the craft of acting, right? Because it's almost the only way to really address that. It is how much, because you have to make a sort of a value judgment, and this gets back to what Kyle was just saying. You have to make a value judgment about, I don't want to, this is probably a poor choice of terms, but the intellect or awareness of your character, you know, relative to your own. And it's actually one of the things that, you know, I struggled with, you know, and kind of was probably pestering Kyle and Joe too much about, was, you know, which is what Kyle just brought up, is like, okay, why would Josh invest this kind of trust in this guy just out of the blue? But what it led to for me, and what was part of the main challenge of playing the character, Josh is very different than most characters that I end up playing, in the sense of, in his naivete, in his gentleness, and his naivete, and his willingness to believe the best, you know, in people, his lack of cynicism about, you know, his fellow human being, and those kinds of things lead to a certain lack of guile, or suspecting guile in somebody else. And so that allowed Josh to be led down the primrose path when it comes to finding himself in that situation. And so the short answer is really, the more you dive into the character almost always answers the question to the actor. And if the actor knows how to ask the right question or receive the information the character is given. And that's sort of what that was for me. I know that's convoluted, but it was a very sophisticated question. I'm still.
And riffing off what you said, Sterling, I think the lack of guile, was what attracted me to you the first time I saw you. But it wasn't even seeing you, it was hearing you, that the sound. I think my character, Trent, I had shut down from all contact. I'd been hurt and abandoned a couple times painfully in my life. And this was like the first time in, God, 20 30 years that I met someone without the guile, the purity and possibility that attracted me. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I'm just as an actor, you know, what attracted me to Josh, the character that Sterling played, and anyways, it got a little out of hand, you know. Obviously, it didn't come out the way I was hoping it would.
I didn't think it was too over the top.
Oh gosh.
I guess I should have specified at the start that I was an acting major, so I like to ask questions that are all about like
there
the
you go.
acting
That
approach.
explains it. That explains it.
Because I was like, oh yeah, no, I understand all of this.
That's a question.
But for Joe and Kyle, was like I'm okay. Again, I'm obsessed with the beginning of this movie. I love this movie as a whole, but I do love this weird mail room that these people working where they have to get approval and like to go talk to a guy. Like the whole situation that's going on at the beginning of this movie. I just like I would watch a whole movie about these people trying to work. For you guys, why was like that setup so important for us to understand like what was going to happen then with like, you know, the help letter and everything else that was going on in the movie?
I'm as you're saying this, I'm having a new memory, Joe. So chime in on this. But I remember Joe's the one who like read about this dead letter office, and you know, and he was like, "Man, we should see if we could put this in a film." And we eventually came up with an idea that we thought, you know, could work for the film. But as we were writing this beginning act you're talking about, we were really tempted, and I think we did just a little bit of research. I remember one time we were together, like Googling, like, all right, what was this dead letter office like? We're like, you know what? Let's make our own version. We know that this dead letter office investigates undeliverable mail, so it's almost just kind of fun to create this hypothetical alternate office that you know, at least serves the plot of our film, even though it's probably not realistic.
Yeah, and I would say it wasn't the importance of it. It was just really fun making it up. Like, let's just say there's a lot of undeliverable mail, and these two women are really good at most of it, but they need a savant who's like an incredible investigator. Oh, let's give him a partner in Belgium that has access to a bunch of tech, and let's make it so only valuables are what he's allowed to investigate. You know, so it was just really fun, honestly. And then once we had that core, we went from there. The first 15 pages, I think, were written a couple of years before the rest of the film.
Yeah, pretty quick. And we were told to actually buy the post office because we tried to film at an old post office in Inglewood, and they read the script and they told us our employees would not conduct themselves this way. This is very unrealistic. So yeah, definitely not a good example of postal work in the film.
Hence postal branch. You know, there's nothing. This is a separate entity, privately owned.
Yeah.
I'm smelling an episodic TV series called PO, you know, taking over where The Office left off. Very profitable.
John, if you can take the lead on getting us funding for that, we will
Oh, I'll
happily.
do it. Count on it. Yeah, right.
Listen, The Office and Parks and Rec are two of my favorite shows, so I would be fully down for a post office version, but just the dead mail post office where they literally are detectives writing on
Love
people's
it.
mail, which I thought was
Awesome.
so funny. But for our last question for all of you, what for you guys is the most exciting thing about the movie getting to come out and going to South by and just people getting to see dead mail?
I mean, I said this before, guys, but but I'm sincere with it. Like, yeah, like I've been telling people, like you got to see Sterling's acting and John's acting and Susan and all the other actors. They really deliver these nuanced characters that were, you know, so much of it is stuff they came up with that wasn't on the page. And Joe and I were always kind of floored by the actors' performances. So for people to see their work along with we had a very small crew. It's really excited that hopefully, you know, people are going to get to recognize all the amazing talent that all these people put into this project.
Yeah, I'll echo that too. I think it's a nod to just get it done filmmaking, from the use of practical lights to just shooting handheld in confined spaces to making a period piece out of random interiors in LA. And I'm really excited for the crew and everyone involved and future filmmakers to hopefully see this and be inspired. Like I can come up with an idea and I can make it happen if I get the right kind of creative community around me.
Yeah, Oh,
No, you go. Sir.
just to dovetail of what Joe just said, getting the right kind of creative community around you. I working with Kyle and Joe and everybody that largely we were working with, we've done work together before. This is probably like what the third, that's the third film that we did together, or the fourth. I don't know, Kyle, you to
I
say,
think 4, yeah.
so I suppose um for me, what I'm really looking forward to is celebrating, the arriving at this point of that journey with the creative tribe, with the creative community. This is a win in and of itself. No matter what comes after or what's happened before, it's a great moment to really kind of absorb and take stock. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with everybody that we went down this road with, and having fun and celebrating.
Hey, for me, briefly, it's just, to be part of the journey, from reading the script to, working with Kyle and Joe, and then working with Sterling, and then shooting it. And now to actually see it, it's like the frosting on the cake. We actually get to see it, and to be there with an audience. I mean, Sterling and I were talking before about, oh God, it's like, as actors, we don't want to be cringing in the audience, but I'm really looking forward, especially after hearing what you're saying, Rachel, and some others about being there and being part of the audience. So, that's going to be an exciting ride.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for people to get to see it. Thank you guys for talking with me. I really appreciate it. And if you want to make a whole little series about that mail room, I'll watch it, because I'm obsessed with those people.
We'll hire you to
Love
consult
it.
or co-create or something for sure. So thank you.
Yes.
But thank you guys. Have a great one.
Thanks, Rachel.
Great talking with you. That was awesome.